Good afternoon and welcome to Live at the Watering Hole this afternoon. We are starting at Jackie's Dam in the Sabi Sands near the Kruger National Park in South Africa this afternoon, where we have some lazy hippopotami in the water, and I can see in the background there's some movement hidden amongst the trees. It looks like some antelope, possibly nyala, just having a bit of a feed there in the shade. Now, I'm Jaapie Potgieter and I am going to be your host this afternoon, and I'm very excited to see what is happening. From the updates that I've been getting from the team, I've heard that there has been some exciting developments, but I would like to remind our viewers we are live and interactive, so you can engage with us on any of our social media platforms, and you can send through comments, questions, or anything that you would like to chat about, and I would love to hear from you. That's also how I learn, is the interesting questions that I receive, and it's what I always enjoy about watching wildlife and working within wilderness areas, is that there's always something new to learn. You never ever know anything, and just if you think you understand something well, nature's got a very nice, humbling way to remind you that you don't quite. So in the background, like I said, I think it is nyala moving there, and I can hear some grey go-away birds going. Now, this time of the year, even though we are entering our winter season in South Africa, and we've been experiencing quite a bit of cold weather, rainy weather down in the southern eastern parts, but in our northeastern parts, where Jackie's Dam is situated, the weather is actually quite nice. Especially this time of the morning, things start to heat up a little bit, and of course there's not so much surface water around this time of the year, and therefore it's always good to have a look to see what the watering holes have to offer. There we go. You can see those tails moving, head up every now and again, almost an involuntary movement after the animals chewed for too long, but you can see they kind of stick to the taller grass patches that's hidden amongst the trees. And it's interesting to see this for an antelope that normally browses. What I like about nyala is sometimes they'll watch each other and one will come over, like that one just did, and push off one of the younger or subordinate members of the group and nibble on whatever's left over. These guys are extremely adaptable in this way, and they generally do prefer the denser areas. Therefore you don't often see them out in the open, but this is one of the ways they push through and survive the winter. That can be quite dry, and I do think even though we've had an extremely wet summer in these parts, I think we are in for quite a dry winter in our northeastern parts of the country, northern and eastern parts. We got a comment from Benji. What does the name hippopotamus means? Benji, that is an extremely good question to start the afternoon with. And the hippopotamus, or plural hippopotami, is its Latin name is Hippopotamus amphibius, and it literally translates to a water horse or river horse, and it comes from ancient Greek. But from casual hippos in the Sabi Sands, let's head over to the Mara crossing and see what's happening with the hippo action that side. We got a different view of a hippo here. Now, this is a hippopotamus carcass, and it is quite interesting. I heard that this carcass was discovered. It is unusual for hippos to get killed by other predators, so in this case I'm not 100% sure what would have happened to this hippo. I mean, there could be various reasons why this animal passed away, but as you can see, the river is flowing quite nicely, and of course this bloated carcass would have started rising up after the animal died and eventually became light to the point where it would have drifted down the river, and it looks like it's got caught on a bank of rocks there. Now what's very interesting is I can see it looks very bloated. It's obviously not been opened up. This animal has an extremely thick and durable skin, even though it's sensitive to the sun. But there we go. I think I just saw a crocodile lift its head in the first little rivet just in front of the carcass, and that, oh, and another one. I think there's a few around, to be honest, and that makes a lot of sense. Now, hippopotamus, the skin is very strong, very thick, and very difficult to pierce and open up, even for animals such as crocodiles. Oh, there's another hippo. I think in front I'm seeing, oh, maybe also a hippo. Maybe it's hippos I'm seeing and not crocs. That might also be one reason why the crocs haven't got here yet. You can see the hippo there at the back behind the ridge of rocks behind the carcass. But what's interesting about this situation is, I think, like, you often find that an animal, a thick-skinned animal, such as the hippo, a carcass might lay for a few days before animals actually start to be able to open it up, even for the crocodiles. But I'm sure eventually this carcass would attract quite a bit of attention from the predators. Where it is, it's potentially even accessible for land predators like hyena or the lion, of course. So this will be a very interesting situation to watch over the next few days. We have a question from Shelley. Do Mara hippos interact with the Great Migration? Shelley, I have seen videos where they do. I've seen videos where hippos, probably out of frustration of all the action moving through their parts of the river, they actively actually attack some of the smaller animals, or some of the animals that cross, like the zebra or the wildebeest, the younger ones. So we do see some interaction. We also see some interaction between the crocodiles and the hippos in these parts, and when they do bask, we also see some interaction with some of the potential predators that come to the shores of the crossing. However, as a general rule of thumb, they tend to stick to themselves. They tend to spend their time in their own little pools, in their own, near the banks that they can bask, and they try to stay away from the commotion. But then, of course, most of the interaction probably happens at night when they leave to go and feed. But yeah, this is an interesting scene. You can see that hippo's nicely propped up on the rocks there, and I do know that hippos are quite concerned over the loss of life of other animals, including their own species, and we do tend to see quite a bit of interaction from hippos with dead animals in the water. So I just heard from our zoomies that the carcass has been here since Monday, and we are now at Saturday, so that is already almost 6 days, 6 full days, which in the spot that it is, I'm not completely surprised that it's still like that. I do think within the next couple of days this carcass will probably start to deflate and we might see a bit of a change happening. But it is very, very interesting to see all the other hippos so close by. Kind of just keeping an eye out to see what's happening. And I'm also pretty sure if there are any predators that would try and attempt to come to this carcass currently, they would probably be chased, especially crocodile. And then again, it's also a little bit rougher water here with those currents in the rocks, the rapids forming in this part of the river. Generally an area that crocodiles tend to avoid. They prefer the slower flowing, deeper waters. But when there's food, the other thing, of course, which is very important this time of the year with the crossing, is the amount of food that moves through this area. Also provides the opportunity for especially the crocodiles in this area and other predators, but especially the crocodiles, it provides them with, in some cases, their whole year's supply of food. The crocodile is a reptile and an animal that uses the environment to regulate its body temperature. Hence it's got a very slow metabolism, and large meals that come from this very busy period of the year here in the Mara tend to provide them with all the sustenance they need. So that could also be, maybe there's enough food going around and they are just not as interested currently, since this would be a little bit more hard work. And of course in nature there is a very, very fine balance between energy spent versus the size of the reward in terms of energy gained. There we go. In the background I saw what seems to be baboons on the bank, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, looks like it. Also interesting fellows. Funny that they should come and have a watch. Baboons also know what's happening. And they do come and check these things out. I've got a question from Bush Guy. Which animals scavenge hippo carcasses? Bush Guy, whichever animal could access it or get to it. Once the thick skin is opened and the meaty parts and the food is exposed, then whatever animal can get to it will definitely come. That includes hyenas, lions, the crocodile, of course, if it's near the water's edge. I've seen even warthogs come down, jackals. Now I haven't seen baboons scavenge in my personal experience. I am not sure if they do or not. I know that they do take meat, they do eat meat, and they do occasionally, especially the larger males, they do even kill and eat young antelope, but not known as scavengers, even though they're also omnivores. Jive Bunny, greetings to you too. And Jive Bunny is also saying that this dead hippo has been here over a week, she thinks. That is quite a long time, Jive Bunny. I am hoping that we might get to see some action in a little while or in a few days' time. Louise is asking, oops, looks like we lost our feed that side, but that's okay. So that was very unfortunate to see that hippo there, and to answer Louise's question, she asked what happened to the hippo. Louise, I'm not sure exactly what happened to it. It could have been from a battle, maybe from the intense times that we are in currently in the Mara with the migration happening, and there's always a bit of tension between the hippo bulls, but not too sure. But from that hippo to the hippos here at Jackie's Dam, let's head over to Rosie's Pan, where we have a live hippo. Aha! A live hippo in a very, very still state, almost motionless. Well, it looks completely motionless. And interesting to see only one. And you can see the back's already dried, so I'm thinking this hippo has been basking here for a while. And if I had to take a guess, I'd say it's likely a male hippo. And what's interesting is to the left of this hippo, we can see quite a bit of grass growing on the edge of the pan. And then to the right, we can see the soil trodden. You can see lots of animal dung as the animals come in to drink. It seems like they prefer that side. Off to the right, you can see the hippo is using that gradual bank into the water to rest a bit. Well, let's have a look. There we go, the ear is moving, so indeed this hippo is alive. No worries there, even though it is a lazily movement. Just look at the skin of this hippo, we can see clear marks, especially along the spine. Deep scars there. And if I had to take a guess, those are puncture marks made by the teeth of other hippos. And of course, not that hippos attack each other to eat each other, but they certainly do when it comes to territory and access to females and water sources. But from hippos to elephants, another favorite around the watering hole, let's go and have a look at Tembi. I'm sure this hippo will be here to come back to later. Aha! A lazy elephant full of mud. Now this is one of my favorite things to see, is when the elephants cover themselves in mud like this, and then they remove the excess afterwards, especially in the folds of the ears, where the ear folds over at the top of the head. And that is an area where thick clumps of mud often gathers, and of course it's also a good spot for parasites like ticks. And the elephant knows that quite well, and thankfully it's got its trunk. Have a look, this guy is just cooling down. It looks like a nice warm day here at Tembi. It doesn't look like there is too much else around to bother him, too many other elephants, which would be the only real thing that could bother an elephant of this size. I found a nice mud hole there, and they often stand a little bit like that, bake a bit in the sun, let the mud dry a little bit, then remove it, then replaster. It's quite the process. There's a lot of time and effort that go into an elephant's appearance maintenance, especially for a large male elephants. They tend to move on their own and often come and hang around these watering holes. Now we have a comment from I Am Freeman saying thank you for the program and that he's watching from Zimbabwe. Very, very happy that you can join him. It is indeed a privilege to be able to witness all the actions and happenings around watering holes across Africa. Personally, that's what I enjoy about.
Some rivalries don't need explaining. They're felt. They're etched into history. The All Blacks, the Springboks, head to head in South Africa. Join us for 2 unforgettable tests, from the fiercest rivalry in sport to luxury safari, hosted by a Springbok legend. Rugby and Safari by Wild Earth Travel. The greatest rivalry, experienced the only way it should be.
The Wild Earth Impact Foundation is a non-profit that uses the power of wildlife storytelling as a force for good. We create sustainable development projects that showcase conservation stories, empower people, and inspire environmental action. As a registered South African PBO, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the Wild Earth Impact Foundation. To find out more, visit our website.
Would you like to know the difference between a male and a female wildebeest? You can ask me questions like this in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive here in the heart of Africa. Join me on Safari Live and connect with nature.
I want us to qualify this one here as a tasker.
Just got our timing perfect with the herd of elephants. Look at this girl, so elegant, so pretty.
The last I saw Kiongozi, he had such a huge wound.
We know that adverts pay our bills, but you don't necessarily like them. So, this is a fantastic way to stop being interrupted. Sign up today and you'll get instant access to wildlife. 24/7, ad-free, live and on demand. No pesky commercials, no rude interruptions, just wild Africa exactly as it unfolds. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together.
Which I think it's more a choice. It's more, well, the hippo probably didn't have much of a choice and that's why he's there, where this elephant probably has a choice. And he decided to spend time on his own in a certain area. And who knows, maybe he might be looking for some company after this. But he seems quite content. Just have a look. So this is interesting to watch here because you can see how the trunk is just dragging on that loose soil and the spots where it looks like other elephants have also stand. There we go. Now he's loosening up some dirt. He's gonna plaster himself. And let's see. Now it's quite an interesting thing this, because the dust, of course, the mud helps with the cooling down. It also adds a protective layer, but the dust, of course, is what kind of makes it settle there. It keeps it from drying out quickly, so it prolongs the coolness of the wet mud for a little bit. It also adds a bit of grit when the animal moves to go and rub itself. That is usually the next step after this. But what I find interesting is how the elephants tend to wait around a little bit. They know that they need to wait until the mud cools slightly, or dries out, I mean. And they kind of paste those specific areas, pull those specific areas everywhere they have an itch. As this mud is drying, I'm sure this animal's skin is starting to itch. Oh, look at that. Looks like he's eaten a bit. Not something seen too often. Not completely uncommon, but not something seen too often. This elephant is known to eat soil to some extent in certain areas, certain spots. Known as geophagy. There's a number of other animals who do the same thing, that tend to eat a bit of soil to add to their mineral intake and nutrient intake. But now the thing is, from where I am, there could have also been something else that he dug out in that patch of dirt there. It's been growing under the soil. I know in some areas you find elephants tend to eat chunks of termite mounds, and when they get to nutritional soil patches. Historically, elephants used to move great distances in order to get to certain areas with nutritional soils, or areas where the soils are known for certain minerals. Even today in the Kruger National Park area, we find that some elephants often move out of the park areas and they move further west to some of the mining areas. We know historically there used to be large mineral deposits that were used by elephants. Then there's also something quite relaxing about watching an elephant covering itself with mud and dust. Now, I've got a few comments coming through about that dead hippo that we saw at the Mara crossing. Double P is asking if the dead hippo is still there, and asking if it's there because of the hippos guarding it. Oh, I see it's from Denise Lawrence. So, yes, Denise, indeed, it is still there. The hippos around it is still around. I think those hippos probably do play a role in it still being untouched there. Although I think if there is a determined predator that don't have any other option, then potentially the situation might change. But yes, indeed it is there, and I've heard it's been there for over a week now. Just have a look. Now this elephant is completely still. And usually when elephants take quiet moment like this, it is because they are likely paying attention to something else happening around them, whether it's picking up on a scent or hearing the noise. Elephants can also communicate over very, very large distances. Here we go. That's why. Another elephant arrived. Oh, see, I didn't even notice that. Only from the quiet behavior of the larger one. But it looks like this larger bull is quite relaxed and gentle, and I think the smaller elephant is well aware of that. And that's something that I admire about elephants in a big way, is the respect that they show towards each other. It depends on the situation, of course. There are various factors that determine it. Relation, size, age. However, I do think that under certain circumstances they also tend to read the context quite well. It looks like this elephant's got a bit of a white mark above its left eye on its forehead. Not sure what that might have been. Might have been from a thick branch in the nearby vicinity. There's a bit of an interaction, interesting interaction going on here. Here's a shake of the head. That's usually indicating to the other one, okay, let's leave it at that. And then a bit of a shoulder, almost giving him a slight cold shoulder. It was like telling the smaller elephant, listen, I don't really want you coming closer, like I don't mind you here, but just stay where you are. Marilyn Hempshall is asking if that's brown water behind the elephants. Marilyn, interesting, since we've come over to these elephants, I have actually been watching that watering hole, and yes indeed it is a watering hole, and so is the one at the back. The one at the back normally, when it's drier, is a small little pan covered in lots of algae, small water plants. So where the brown water right behind the elephants is normally a little bit clearer, and generally a watering hole that gets drank from quite often. But now looking at it, I know this area has received a massive amount of rain over the rain season, and I'm sure there was a lot of seepage and other materials that got washed down, hence the color of the water. And by the looks of it, it looks like it's a little bit murky and probably not been utilized to its full extent, and I'm sure that is mainly because there is numerous other watering holes around. That would be my guess. But yes indeed, it is brown water. But I think there's enough other water around for the elephants to use, or for drinking at least. Let's have a look now. That elephant is just loosening some soil on the edges there. Now, one thing I'm trying to determine is whether this elephant is another male or a female. And my guess would be a female, which would make this interaction a little bit more interesting. Judging from the size, look, elephants, because of their genetic heritage, they do tend to vary quite a bit in size, and you get some taller and shorter elephants. But in this case, this elephant looks a little bit old for an elephant. Let's see that size in comparison if it is a male, but who knows, maybe I'm wrong. Now, an interesting thing about elephants is when an elephant is in heat, you find that some of the female elephants might actually at points leave their herds and go look for nearby male elephants in the vicinity. Although that male obviously doesn't seem too interested. I think he's probably realized that this elephant is going to stay around, so it's time for him to move off. And how convenient, the loosened soil can now be used by this one. The resources and the sharing of resources. Interesting to see how valuable a loose patch of soil can be. So Jive Bunny is wondering if the younger one has attached itself to the older bull elephant. Jive Bunny, that is exactly what I am trying to figure out here. And okay, now what I'm trying to see, it does look like a it does actually look like another male elephant, but it's tricky to say from this angle for me, to be honest. If it is another male elephant, then that would also make sense. Younger males do tend to join older males at certain ages, where they follow them, they learn from them, mainly by moving into the same areas, and if they get tolerated, and kind of form these all male groups. But yes, indeed, it does look like a young male elephant. Got a bit of a plump shape, and judging from the scars on his ears, he looked a little bit older. And what I initially suspected, which is why it confused me a little bit, but now I see actually not that much smaller. Maybe it might have been just the angle of the camera. Oh no, I'm still not 100% sure, to be honest. I think it does still look like it might be a female elephant. But I stand to be corrected. Have a look. The first gulp of water that goes into the mouth gets sprayed in almost to start off, probably just to wash all that dirt out from between the teeth. And you can see there is a bit of casual interest from the larger elephant. So let's see what happens here. But normally with bull elephants, you tend to find that the younger bull elephants are a little bit, almost more tactile. They'll try and push the boundaries a little bit. Unless, of course, the elephants know each other very well. And when I mean push the boundaries a little bit, I mean in terms of personal space with the older elephants. If I have to take a guess, I'm still thinking that it is a younger or a female elephant that's come to look for a potential mate. Maybe the herd that she's from moved in the surrounding areas and she decided to come and investigate. It's still my first guess, but of course I stand to be corrected. But there we go, at least we see the elephant is drinking from the brown pool of water. But, well, the brown pool of water, normally here we'd have 2 or 3 separate pools. But now, after this wet season that's passed, it looks like they all kind of flowed into each other. That was a gentle nudge. Keep moving. Okay, there we see. Now it's definitely a male elephant, a younger male elephant. No doubt about that. And I am corrected. And very likely is trying to form a bond with that older guy, who very kindly is telling him to keep his own space. Elephants are fascinating creatures. I mean, I've had the privilege of watching them for extended periods of time, and still they baffle me. Well, so from 2 elephants, we are going to move over to Moela, where we've got all the zebras in the world. Wow, there is quite a few zebra here. Well, I'd say certainly probably most of the zebras in Botswana. And talk about personal space. I saw that very interesting spatial arrangement between the 2 elephants, the Tembi. Over here it looks like every group of zebra in the area has decided to come down. Just look at that long line of zebra. And just look at the dust that they're kicking up, moving away. Whoa, that's a lot of zebra moving away. That is quite a spectacle. Now that's very much something that I think would be a huge privilege to experience firsthand. Being there at Muela, unfortunate people that have the luxury of being able to see this. Very, very spectacular, I think. Now, all the commotion, and this is the thing that I like about zebra, there's always a commotion going on. There's always a bit of a bit of vying for spots and space and getting agitated with other zebras that come into their personal space. But what a spectacular sight to see. Interesting also, once again, and I do often mention this, but I cannot help to, it is fascinating to watch, is the fact that this part of southern Africa is already quite dry compared to the other areas. You can see there's quite a bit of large birds. It looks like vultures maybe soaring up from the back there. And there's also quite a bit of large dead trees around here, which is something that vultures tend to use during the day, nighttime, when they sit down to roost. Just listen to the noises. You can imagine that some mothers and foals might get separated. Younger groups of zebras might get separated, so there's a lot going on. And it seems like these zebras are coming from all angles, to be honest. Wildlife Lady is saying Zebra Valley is back. I agree, Wildlife Lady. This is indeed Zebra Valley. Look at these. Oh, there's a lot. Nelly is asking, where do these zebras go? Nelly, I do not know. All I know is that they've had their drink, so my best guess would be that they are leaving. Well, it was a large stream that came together, and I'm sure that this large group of zebras, as we seeing them, you can see, have a look, these guys, let's see, I'm sure they're coming down to the water. Now this is quite an interesting thing, because this is quite important. I think these large groups of zebras, as we see them, they are actually combined smaller groups, or harems, as the social structure of zebras are referred to. And then of course there's also some young male groups which can vary in size, often from only a few to quite a large number. And these groups gather. They knew that the other groups are going to come down to the water to drink, so they're all interested to see what's spotting, who's around. And then when they congregate around the water, they form these massive, almost super herds.
The Masai Mara in February 2027 with your favorite Wild Earth guides. This is an extraordinary safari opportunity. You'll stay at the exclusive Kobe Mara, a private villa in the action-packed Northern Mara. Your hosts for this fun-filled safari are David Gigi Gitu, Cedric Dold, and me, James Henry. Alright then, let me show you what you're missing. Our archive allows you to delve into the past, be it yesterday or many years ago. You can visit characters who've left us.
Doesn't ever get old.
This is, of course, the Little Prince, Hosanna, guides who've moved on to other things.
Tingana's walking right in front of my vehicle.
These guys are the Sausage Tree Pride,
classic stories and wonderful moments. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together. When the Mara turns green, life surges, the air hums, the earth stirs, and the wild comes alive. Here, the wonder never ends. It just changes color. Every storm, every sunrise, every sweeping vista is an expression of wild magic. Visit the Masai Mara. Experience the magic.
The energy levels are super high.
There it comes. Giving us a nice little walk by here now.
And it's my first cheetah for about over a month.
We know that adverts pay our bills, but you don't necessarily like them. So, this is a fantastic way to stop being interrupted. Sign up today and you'll get instant access to wildlife. 24/7, ad-free, live and on demand. No pesky commercials, no rude interruptions, just wild Africa exactly as it unfolds. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together.
Elephant pool. Let's head over to Tau, where we've got another elephant pool coming down to the water. Oh, no doubt with this one I won't confuse myself. This seems like a decent sized large elephant bull. He seems quite seasoned, probably knows this watering hole here at Tau very, very well. And you can see he's just walking, blowing dust, but he is moving at a steady pace for his midday drink. Don't see wet on the trunk or the legs or the body, so I don't think he's had a drink yet. You can see the redder soil on the back. He's come from the hills. Let's see, it's almost as if he's speeding up slightly as he approaches the water. Now it looks like he's moving quite slow, but the interesting thing about these guys are they're covering distance at an astonishing pace. And he's determined to come to drink. Now I've noticed here Tau, the elephant bulls especially, they do move off to that end of the watering hole to drink. Oof, and there's a beautiful waterbuck bull there. Lots of moorhens around and other birds, zebra. Here we go, the head starts dipping. The ear is slightly stiffened. Here we go. Now, if I didn't know any better, I would say that elephant is almost smiling as he's putting that cool, clean water in its mouth. Just the initial taste. You might move around, find another spot to have another drink. Luckily for him, it looks like there is not a lot of other elephants that's been here now, I'd say in the last little while, so the water's probably not too muddied up. hence he doesn't have to move around too much. But yeah, he is quite relaxed. And it looks like he might take his time. No push. Kenny is asking, how do they know where the water is? Kenny, elephants have an exceptional sense of smell, and they can pick up the water vapor in the air. They can pick up the smell of water. Water has a very distinctive, unique smell, and they can smell it over a very, very large distance. Interestingly enough, on that notice, even humans are also quite adept at smelling the smell of water. We are known to detect a chemical known as jasmine in the air, which is something that happens or gets released as soon as water touches the barren earth. It's usually that smell that you pick up when the first rains start to fall on a dry ground. And we can even smell water over a long distance. But an elephant can smell water from a very, very long distance. Then, of course, they also just know. They have these maps and trails set out in their minds that they've learned, areas that's been taught by their mothers as they grow up, shared by some of the other older bulls like this one with younger ones. So they also learn and they remember very well where to move and when to move. So we have Ryan Salter is saying it's beautiful colors with this vista. It's really, really vivid indeed. Ryan, I do agree. I think the yellows, that touch of yellow with the flowers out on the clearing is beautiful, and then the changing colors as the season is changing. Denise Lawrence is saying that she loves it when they wallow in the mud and roll around and they look clumsy. Yes, it is indeed, Denise. I agree. They do look very clumsy and funny, especially to see such a large animal. It's almost an awkward feeling you get. And then we've got a very interesting question from Roz in George, asking saying that following sites like the Shaldick Trust, etc., has helped me understand the behavior of Ellies and others. Oh, well, Roz, George, I'm very, very happy to hear that. Yes, I see you call yourself an armchair follower. Look, there is nothing wrong with an armchair follower. I think it is wonderful to show an interest in trying to educate oneself, and I think especially sites like the Shaldick Trust is a very good site to follow, very informative. And I think on conservation related issues and animal related issues in Africa, it is always good to educate oneself as much as possible. And if one has an interest, what better way to combine reading up, doing your research, while also having the privilege to watch live animals and their behavior on shows like Wild Earth and Live at the Watering Hole. I think for elephants in particular, elephants, hippo, zebra, Live at the Watering Hole certainly provides a lot of interesting behaviors. But from our elephant that's had a nice little drink here in the midday, let's head back to the main Mara crossing and see what's happening there. Haha. Looks like an old stumpy-tailed large crocodile. You can just see his head swaying in the water. This croc looks like he's having the time of his life. Or she. Once again, I wouldn't know. I can see that tail looks a little bit stumpy at the edge. Looks like the elongated scales on the tail is almost completely worn down. So my guess would be that this would be a very ancient crocodile, and I would very much love to see this animal out of the water or in action. But now that we are here at the main Mara crossing, I had a few comments earlier on about the hippo carcass that we've seen. There was Denise's comment saying that surprisingly the hyenas haven't gotten to the carcass yet. That is surprising, Denise, indeed. I do think that this time of the year provides such a rich amount of food that there's more than enough for the predators to go around. And because of that, you don't often find the land-dwelling animals come down to the water for something like a hippo. Especially the fact that the other hippos are running around. The chances of crocodiles getting to that carcass first is also large. I'm surprised that they haven't tried, or maybe they have. Maybe those hippos are just keeping it at bay. But while these hippos are briefly came back to Jackie's Dam as we lost our feed there, but I think we're going to head over to Tortilla's camp where we can do a bit of birding. Aha. And here we have quillias. Now here we can clearly see that they are quillias. It's a nice close-up view. You can see the red bills, which this bird is known for. The red-billed quillia. Now, I know that in East Africa we do get different kinds of quillias. You get the cardinal quillia, the red-headed and the red-billed quillia, but unmistakably this is the red-billed quillia. And it is interesting to note that this little bird also has a few different colorations for the breeding colored males, and regarded as one of the most numerous birds on earth, known to form massive flocks. There's dark clouds of birds moving in sync in the sky. Amazing to watch. All these little birds fly almost choreographed in those large groups. Now these birds are also regarded as quite a pest to farmers, unfortunately, as they can cause quite a lot of damage due to their massive sizes that they, or massive amounts that they occur in. But yeah, very beautiful little birds when you look up closely. Wendy is asking where in Africa is the best birding. Phew. Wendy, that's a very difficult question to answer. I do not know. I haven't been birding all over Africa. I've been fortunate to be birding in some spots. I don't know. I think every part of Africa is unique. I can tell you, however, areas that I would like to go bird is the central parts of Mozambique and the northern parts of Mozambique. all over East Africa, Tanzania. You have Namibia, that's got some very interesting and unique type of birds to that area. Maybe not so many different species. That is desirable for some birders. And then of course, at least in southern Africa, besides Mozambique, I would also like to do more birding in Mozambique and Zimbabwe. I haven't actually had the chance to do a lot of birding in Zimbabwe, but I know the Eastern Highlands is a good area, lots of endemic and unique species there. So a very difficult question to answer. I would not know what to say. I think it depends on what you're looking for, and to be honest, I think all throughout Africa would be a great place to go. Then we got an interesting question from Catherine U2R asking how often do the crocodiles shed their outer coat? Now Catherine, that is a very good question, because technically speaking they don't shed quite like snakes or lizards do. They kind of regrow the outer layer of skin almost at a constant rate throughout the body, from what I understand. Especially where crocodiles often also go through slower and more rapid periods of growth depending on the availability of food and their age, of course. So yeah, with the larger reptiles like crocodile, they tend to kind of have this constant shedding or regrowth of the outer layer as they age, where with snakes and lizards it depends more on the age of the creature and the areas that they are found in. But yeah, very interesting question. Skin shedding on reptiles, often known as schlouging. What an interesting word. Just have a look at how precisely these birds position themselves. They come in with tremendous speed when they come and land, and they have to kind of get their spot there in and amongst the already perched birds, and they do with perfect accuracy. And just look at the thorns on that tree. That is indeed remarkable. And they come and they go. And I love the fact that one of them faces backward, one forwards. Well, this is a beautiful view of these red-billed quellias. Very, very nice to check in at Tortilla Camp. But let's head back to Tembe, where I heard we still have some eddies. Aha, and indeed we have a beautiful elephant drinking from the brown muddy pool. There we go. Now you can see he's clearing the top, so it looks like it's only a top layer of debris that's on the water surface, and I was wondering about that, whether it was the actual color of the water or just something covering the top. Happy to see that it's just debris and probably some flakes from nearby plants that's washed off and settled on the water's top layer. How clever of the elephant to push that apart to access the water underneath. And have a look, he's having a bit of a stop here and there. We did have a stop there, probably to have a look at the other elephants that's passed earlier. And let's see what he's up to now. He seems to be moving a little bit more determined. It's amazing that these creatures can move as quickly as they want to cross, and while investigating the area. Oh, look at this guy. Now I have seen him around with his striking ear mark or tear in his ear. Now let's see. I also know that he is, he's going in for a greeting there, trying to get his trunk to the mouth of the larger elephant. But I know that he is quite confident for a younger one. He's also got quite a nice set of tusks, they're quite symmetrical, rather straight. And being a young elephant, still got a long way to go. It would be very interesting to see how he develops. As we know, elephants in the Tembe area are well known for their tusks. Willow is asking how much water can an elephant's trunk hold at once. Now Willow, from what I understand, it would depend on the elephant's age and size, but what I understand, a large elephant can keep as much as 15 liters. 15 liters is a lot of water. Every time they drink, every time they spray. That is incredible. That means in seven drinks it can be almost 100 liters. Ooh, look at this beautiful elephant bull coming in now. You can clearly see who has the higher rank here. The other two kind of almost in sync, just move away from the good drinking edge. But let's have a look. See that young one? His confidence levels are still surprisingly high. Maybe he might be going in to go greet. He must be the friendliest out of these bulls around here. And I'm sure most of these bulls in this area do know each other. But yes, up to 15 liters I know. Generally, an elephant with a gulp it's considered to keep, I know from some studies, is between 7 or 8 liters at a time. Is I guess a more reliable answer. To Willow's question, with you. So Catherine is saying that I guess they're building their outer armor coat as they grow out. That's about the crocodile. Now earlier Catherine's question about the crocodiles and how often they shed their coats. Catherine, in short, they do tend to they definitely tend to strengthen, well, at least thicken and strengthen their skin as they go older. And in that way, yes, it does protect the animal as they age, but it's also part of the natural thing. And a lot of reptiles, but especially crocodiles, they have these thick bony plates in the skin, that also adds to their protection and their armor coat, and especially on the upper side. But while these elephants are drinking and enjoying the heat here in Tembe, we're going to head back to Rosie's pan, where we've got another elephant, but with an interesting view of it. Indeed, an interesting view. Look at this elephant. He sprayed a small bit of water on his forehead. And have a look at that. He's just squirting some water out. No, not sure if he wants to drink or if he just wants to cool down. Maybe he's just testing the water. Maybe he's not that thirsty. You can see he's almost just washing out his mouth. And that's the other thing with a lot of the water that does get slurped up within the trunk of an elephant. A lot of it does get sprayed and sprayed out, and it's kind of like drinking while cleaning their mouth at the same time. Also, you can imagine with a trunk such as that, and the way they use it and how much they rely on it, there's also a lot of debris and dust that gets into the trunk, and due to that we tend to, I'm sure it gets dirty, it gets dusty. So all often they kind of just wash out their nasal passages as well as the mouth. But yeah, that was an interesting little spray of water there on the forehead. Now here at Rosie's pan, I know that the hippo is probably still around as well, and I'm wondering if this elephant is swaying around like this due to the hippo, because there is always an interesting, oh look at that. Now that is also a very interesting tree trunk, that I'm sure it's been used by many an animal as a scratching post or a hiding place. But now I have noticed that you often do tend to see a bit of reaction from hippos when elephants arrive at the watering hole, and I think that there's also a bit of curiosity, especially from young elephant bulls like this one, and maybe that's what he was doing. So let's see what happens here. Now Wildlife Lady made a comment saying that she's glad to see the hippos back at Rosie's pan. Indeed, Wildlife Lady, I'm sure as time goes along the hippos will probably come and go, or if this one finds that this pan is not too much hassled. But let's see. Oh no, he's going down. Just investigating that tree trunk. Okay, no, he's moving off. He just had a drink. I was interested. I was hoping that maybe we might see a little bit of curiosity from this guy. But as this elephant moves off, Ryan Salter made a comment saying it's a pretty steep roll off at Rosie's pan. And yes, Ryan, it looks like if this elephant, it looks like he might, if he puts a foot down, it might have a bit of an issue, but I don't think I think he's quite used to it. You can see now he's just going to go about his business and move on. So as he moves on, I think so should we. Let's head back over to Tembe for more elephants. And the situation's changed slightly, looks like. Interesting, the elephant facing us with his backside has got those pinkish blotches behind the ears. There is a lot of spectacular elephants at Tembe. A few days ago I had the privilege of being in southern Mozambique for a few days, and on our way there and back we drove past the entrance to Tembe Reserve, or Tembe Elephant Park. And I'm not gonna lie.
Some tours are watched, others are lived. This is England's tour of South Africa, December to January, cricket at its most iconic. And when the final ball is bowled, your journey is only just beginning. Travel into the wild, all-inclusive, seamless, unforgettable. Cricket and Safari by Wild Earth Travel. This isn't just a tour, it's South Africa, done properly.
Would you like to know the difference between a male and female wildebeest? You can ask me questions like this in real time. Our safaris are live and interactive here in the heart of Africa. Join me on Safari Live and connect with nature.
Sign up today and you'll get instant access to wildlife. You'll also have access to our post-produced content, like a Wild Bush Week. Textbooks tell us that a ratio of 3-to-1 hyenas drive off lionesses. Safari Live catch-up.
We have got some doggies that are on the hunt.
And even that sort of cult favourite, The Wild Show. And the little one has made it out. Hopefully will rejoin the herd. Wild Earth Explorers. Wilder. Together. We know that adverts pay our bills, but you don't necessarily like them. So, this is a fantastic way to stop being interrupted. Sign up today and you'll get instant access to wildlife. 24/7, ad-free, live and on demand. No pesky commercials, no rude interruptions, just wild Africa exactly as it unfolds. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together.
Approach to the water here. It looks almost like a little bit of a dip in the rocks here, like a rock pool. And this elephant is just casually standing right in the middle of it having a drink. And interesting, in the background you can hear the little owls calling. owlets actually, which is something that's interesting, and something also very unique about this time of the year is in these regions here around the Simbavati. We've got two little owlets, can be quite vocal during the middle of the day. One being the pearl spotted, and then the other one the barred owlet. And these little owls both like wooded areas, and they do tend to be very active in the winter months, where it's also their breeding season. Look at that water just dripping from the elephant's mouth. Now, I always find it fascinating to look at the lower lip of these magnificent creatures after they've had a drink. They have these long protruding, which look like hairs, but they are some serious sensory organs, and they actually help the elephant to determine exactly where to place the trunk. Now it looks like he might be tracking something. Maybe there were other elephants or something else in the area that had a drink. You can see trunk on the ground, moving at a steady pace, so whatever it is, the scent might be rather fresh. Or maybe it's just checking as he's moving. But funnily enough, an elephant can look down the trunk and past the tusks, and they've got surprisingly good eyesight, but the one area they cannot see is right below the upper jaw, of course, and it's the mouth. So they have those sensory organs on the tip of the trunk, all throughout the trunk and on the chin, and it helps them direct their food in the trunk very carefully into their mouth. And you often find that when they drink or eat, there's a lot of debris stuck on it. But as large elephants do, they completely easily disappear into the thick bush of the southern African lowveld. Let's head back to Tembe. Where now we've got an elephant party happening. This is quite spectacular. Elephants of all sizes. You can see now the younger ones are starting to band together on the outskirts. Probably trying to size each other up here as well. What? The one with the large tear in the right ear, maybe he's just doing his rounds, greeting all of the others. Now, I see the elephant moving away over to the right has got a satellite tracking collar on. And I've also noticed as we left this watering hole earlier, there was another animal that came in. It looked like it might have been a cow. Oh, there she is. Maybe that's why that young elephant is standing there. He's just inspecting. You can see he's inspecting the back end, so very likely a female, that one. And as young males do, or all male elephants do at some point, they inspect the females. But you can see the large little block right at the top between the ears on that elephant. That is where, that's the top end of the collar, and it's facing straight into the sky, and that's to connect with the satellite. And through these tracking collars, researchers can keep track of these animals as they move. And this way, it enables us to do research on their movements, where they go, their social dynamics. It gives us a lot of valuable information that can be used to aid us in the management of elephants, and also understanding wildlife corridors. So it also gives us information about important areas. Now, elephants, of course, being a keystone species, and an ecosystem engineer, is an animal that is extremely important and vital to a functioning ecosystem. But unfortunately, where they live in close proximity to people, they can be quite destructive. Hence, another reason to track them, to understand their movements. Then efforts can be employed to try and manage conflict situations between people and large wildlife like the elephants. But it's getting very busy here now. There's more elephants coming from the back. Looks like there's a young elephant there as well, a much younger elephant than the rest around. Some impala coming down. Oh, that elephant is having a good scratch on his back end there. Now I can see it looks like there's a little dry patch on either side of the spine, right at the top, above the hip bones, between the shoulders and the hip bones, and it almost looks like this elephant is trying to attempt to cover that part. Now he's rethinking his plan. Maybe that roll didn't work as well as he thought it would. Kenny is asking, do baby elephants drink water the same way as adults? Kenny, generally speaking, no, but it would depend on the age of the baby elephant. Very young elephants will not actually drink water. They only start to drink water a little later. Initially it's only milk, and then up until such time that they can properly use their trunk, they will kind of wade into the water a little bit and drink with their mouth. And hence you'll see little elephants often like walking in, splashing about, falling around in the water. And funnily enough, as do older elephants that develop trunk problems, they tend to do the same. They'll also walk into the water to drink. Sir Trim is asking if elephants have a nose or nostrils. They technically have both. Their trunk or proboscis is essentially an extension of the nasal cavity and the nose that opens into the throat. And interestingly enough, so their nose which is their trunk, is also a prehensile tool, and they have evolved in a very unique way where essentially their whole existence depends on that appendage, which makes it even more remarkable that when these animals do tend to suffer the loss of the trunk, that's this important thing in their lives, and that they take a very long time to learn to use properly. Some baby elephants, generally they can take 6 months up to a year even in some cases to learn how to use their trunk properly, and I'm sure even after that they still probably don't have the full use of it, but they adapt surprisingly quickly in how to function without it. Which I've also noticed, because I've worked in areas where there was quite a high degree of elephants that had injured trunks due to snare poaching, which is a way that people set illegal wire traps for mostly smaller animals, but unfortunately elephants suffer because of it, and then they get some serious injuries to their trunks and sometimes even lose parts of it. In some cases there is also diseases that affects the trunks, nerve diseases. I know there's a disease called a floppy trunk disease, which affects the central nerve, and the elephant kind of loses the use of its trunk. If I'm not mistaken, there were cases of where it's kind of, in some cases it actually, the elephants recovered from it on their own, in other cases they never did. It had some elephants that suffer because of it, and others actually found ways to get around it. But yeah, so Sertrim, and essentially their nose or their trunk have two nasal tubes running all the way down on either side of the nerve, down to the tip of the trunk that has the nostrils, and also those prehensile appendages that kind of functions as a thumb and an index finger in a weird way. Incredibly sensitive, incredibly tactile. Have a look. There's an interesting moment here. The younger elephant just satisfying his curiosity with a much larger older bull. It is extremely gentle. Now he's a bit unsure. It's almost like he's like, whoa, what an amazing moment. Well, that big tusker just got to meet him. No, it's a female, that's why. Hence the gentleness. There's maybe just a quick stop from both to satisfy the curiosity. Now the bull's standing very still there in the background, probably thinking maybe he should return, or maybe go and investigate more. Benji's asking what happens to elephants in the dry season. Well, it depends on the elephant, Benji. Elephants tend to focus on areas where there's available food. Being an elephant, of course, it needs a lot of food, a lot of fresh plant material. But they certainly change and shift their diet. They move into different areas. They often occupy areas with green belts along rivers' edges, along streams, sometimes mountainous areas where there's more lush vegetation. They move between drier and less drier areas. They have regular routes from surface water, available surface water, to feeding grounds. And in some cases they'll make regional movements to areas where there's more available surface water. For instance, what we've noticed in South Africa, especially in the Kruger National Park, is on the dry season, beginning dry season, and then usually later in the dry season around July, August, you tend to find that a lot of elephants congregate on the western side, where you have a lot of private game reserves with managed watering holes that kind of acts as constants. It's constant available surface water. Those are pumped, hence the waters are found all year round, and it's to, of course, keep animals within the area for the purpose of running tourism-based activities. So it certainly serves its purpose, but we find that elephants congregate in massive numbers sometimes because they know that the water's there. And it's great for game viewing, but it affects the environment a little bit. As large amounts of elephants concentrated in certain areas can be quite damaging to the environment. Hence the reason some areas manage their watering holes more carefully. They rotate them. Some years they'll pump certain holes, other years not. Some areas they close them down completely. Some areas they even open up dams to let the streams flow when it does. Nellie's asking, how fast can an elephant drink? Nellie, I am not too sure. I think it depends on how thirsty it is, but I think like water must enter the trunk at quite a speed, and then get squirted out at quite a high speed when it goes into the mouth. But I do not know how fast exactly. I don't know how many gallons or liters per minute. I'll have to have a look into that. I'm sure there is some statistic for it, somebody that decided to measure that. Well, let's have a look. So this elephant has now decided to mud herself finally on the outskirts. Maybe it's the fact that she is a female. She's spending the time here on her own, not waiting where all the other bulls are. You can see there was a bit of a excitement, and it's almost like she wanted the attention from that other big bull elephant that moved away. But yeah, so I heard that we've got some secretary birds at Mahali, Missouri. Now that's quite exciting, and I think if we're lucky these elephants might stay here. So let's head over there to go have a look at the secretary birds. Well, I'm sure they are here. I've been told they are here. But as birds do, and secretary birds do, is they keep walking. What a beautiful view though. Mahali Mzuri in the Masai Mara. Beautiful, beautiful area. But I am sure these birds are just behind the bush at this point. They are birds that do not really sit still. They move about, they're constantly looking for food in the long grass. Often reptiles and snakes, of course. But unfortunately it seems like we might not get a view here. But I heard that there's a crocodile that's arrived at the hippo carcass at the Mara river crossing. I think let's head there. Let's see if we might get to see some action there. Aha! There we go. You can see the other hippos are still around. I can see the croc moving on the right hand side there. Now for this croc to get over the rocks and through the rapids, it must have had... Ooh, there's more than one crocodile. There's a few crocs. There we go. I wondered when this would happen. Here we go. So, funnily enough, with the other hippos around, you can see that one popping up every now and again. It doesn't seem to be too bothered with the crocs. So even though I have seen in the past that hippos might deter crocs from other dead hippos, I think in this case, it being here for such a long time, these animals very likely had time to make peace with that, and it is unfortunate that it got stuck on that ridge, but now it is left for the predators to have their turn. And this is pretty spectacular to see. So now the question is, will they dislodge that hippo at some point? For the time being, I'm thinking that they are probably just trying to find the open spots a little more. And that would usually be with the soft spots, the ears, around the eyes.
When the Mara turns green, life surges, the air hums, the earth stirs, and the wild comes alive. Here, the wonder never ends. It just changes color. Every storm, every sunrise, Every sweeping vista is an expression of wild magic. Visit the Masai Mara. Experience the magic.
I want us to qualify this one here as a tusker.
Just got our timing perfect with the herd of elephants. Look at this girl. So elegant, so pretty.
The last I saw Kiongozi, he had such a huge wound.
We know that adverts pay our bills, but you don't necessarily like them. So, this is a fantastic way to stop being interrupted. Sign up today and you'll get instant access to wildlife. 24/7, ad-free, live and on demand. No pesky commercials, no rude interruptions, just wild Africa exactly as it unfolds. Wild Earth Explorers, wilder together.
He'll probably fight for the best spot around the carcass. But I'm interested in this crocodile going for the foot. Have a look, there we go. There's the roll. The well-known and very much revered and feared roll, otherwise known as the death roll, which crocodiles generally do when they grab onto dead prey, especially large carcasses like hippopotamus. They will grab onto a piece, hold, and then they will roll and twist their body around to try and tear off chunks or open the skin by tearing. Now, crocodiles of course cannot chew. Their mouths are designed for grabbing and crushing, and they kind of, whatever chunks they get into the mouth kind of goes down as one, and they have a huge wide throat opening, and therefore they can swallow massive chunks of meat. So in some cases even whole little animals. Catherine U2R is saying thank you Wild Earth and Africam, and goodbye and enjoy everybody. You too, Catherine, hope you have a wonderful afternoon and may you enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Shelley is asking why there's no hyenas. Shelley, I think at this particular point in the in this situation, I think this hippo is very much in the domain of the crocodile, and I think for hyenas to come here they have to be quite desperate to risk it. Look, I wouldn't put it above them, but I think it would be an unnecessary risk and expenditure of energy for them to try and compete with all these crocs in the water for a chunk of meat. But we never know what might happen as time goes on. Seloy is asking, what is a croc's lifespan? Seloy, that is a very good question. Now, especially some of these bigger crocs here in the Mara River, there's been a lot of speculation, and we do know that crocodiles can easily reach ages of 60 years or older. Now, there's some cases where some of them even grow older than 100 years. I know there was a famous, very large Nile crocodile in captivity that recently passed away in South Africa, and that animal was over 100 years old. I can't remember the exact age now. But crocs are certainly quite long-lived. I mean, reptiles in general can be quite long-lived, the large reptiles. And yeah, as long as they have the available resources they need, and they can keep growing. Reptiles also have a thing called indeterminate growth, which essentially just means they keep growing throughout their lives, not necessarily in length, but they certainly sit out. There we go, there's a nice big croc exiting the water there, going for a bask. There we go. Didn't have to go too far. There's a nice flat bank right there. Imagine those warm rocks from being baked in this very, very warm East African sun here in Kenya. So as they do, they would be exerting quite a bit of effort to try and get to the meat inside this hippo. Even though it's slow, they do need to re-energize themselves and warm up a bit. But I can see there's a massive amount of crocodiles there. And now I'm wondering if I missed that earlier. Maybe because they are blended in so well with the rocks on the side, I didn't even notice that those were actually mostly crocs on this rocky ridge. But when the larger crocs move away, the smaller ones come in. And so the cycle continues. But yeah, no, these, I think, I was wondering, and I think it was crocodiles indeed that I was seeing, the spiky rocks. But I think it's getting nice and warm now. Maybe the crocs have warmed up quite a bit, and that's why we saw a bit of action. But the crocodile knows very well that this hippo is not going to go anywhere soon. If there's one thing it does have on its side, it is time. And evolution has showed us that the crocodile has done very well to use its time effectively. But this will be an interesting situation to see. I see we've come near the end of our show for today. Mr. Elemental is saying thank you to everybody here at Live at the Watering Hole. Very glad you enjoyed it. And what a fascinating afternoon. Lots of elephant action, lots of hippo action, including no action from a hippo, but action from crocodiles, and a little bit of birding in between. I think this has been a spectacular afternoon, and I hope that all our viewers join us again tomorrow. From all of us here at Wild Earth and Live at the Watering Hole, I would like to say good afternoon.